All right, everybody, welcome to our first of many editions of the Be Vital podcast. I'm here with the founder, Stephanie Nascimento, and we're going to be talking today a little bit about what Be Vital is all about, what they offer, and what you can expect in the future from Be Vital. Many of you know I'm very much into health and wellness. I'm going to be putting this podcast on my channels as well. I'm the host, Marcia Hawkins, and everyone that knows me knows I am just absolutely dedicated to living a healthy lifestyle, and that's hence how I found Be Vital. And I'm very excited to talk to Stephanie today, because I think that in 2026, we are 2 days into the new year, and I get evangelical about things when I know that they benefit others. And that's really kind of my mission on bringing the podcast to the public, but also learning more about what you offer for myself. So welcome, Stephanie.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcia. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm very excited to be here.
You are very welcome. So why don't we start off first talking about how Be Vital came into existence?
Yes, great topic. So we have been in business for 14 years now.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Surprised I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. 14 years ago, Dr. Jeanette Wilburn and I got together and decided we had a very similar mission in healthcare. We both felt irritated by being in sick care rather than healthcare.
No, interesting way to put it.
Yeah, definitely. I was at the hospital in Brattleboro at the time, and she was at Wilburn Chiropractic in Amherst. And we just knew that there was more that we could do for our patients. And we had stumbled upon a weight loss program called Ideal Protein. It had been around for a while, but we, went to this seminar, was blown away by the amount of patients that were there, some of them with insulin pumps and oxygen, etc. And they got up and they made their appointments right after the seminar. And the whole way back, Jeanette and I decided this is something we really wanted to do.
Wow. So you kind of fell into it.
We did. We totally fell into it.
But with a mission, for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So my brother and I and her husband at the time and her got on the program, and we opened up our clinic 3 weeks later.
I love that. There's nothing like an entrepreneur that gets things done. A lot of people are like, oh, when my logo's done, when I get my website up, I'll start it then. And then 10 years later, they never do it. So I love your speed.
Yes. And there's never going to be a perfect time to start anything. But
at 100%. Yep.
Yeah. If you have the passion, you got to go for it. So we did. And, the rest is history. But wellness and dieting and healthcare has shifted so much within those 14 years. So we have adapted accordingly. There's been some big changes, the
amazing changes that are just, my mom, who always struggled with her weight, used to say, if they can put a man on the moon, why can't they come up with a weight loss theory, some type of product that will get the weight off? And hence now we do have that.
That's right. Yeah, we sure do. We have many different options, and there's no one option that's appropriate for everyone. So it's really fun to find what works for people the best and titrate their protocol and their program accordingly. So we have a lot of fun with that here. Last couple of years, I would say since COVID, we've definitely pivoted quite a bit in our services. So we've, branched out with pain management protocols and programs, knee restoration programs. That's more on the chiropractic side of things. And that's, that's Jeanette. And then I have brought in hydration therapy, which has been a blast in addition to the weight loss. And there's many reasons for that, as you can imagine.
What are a couple of reasons why you decided to segue into that?
Well, when you're working with weight loss, there's the root causes, right? Which can be a vast array of things for folks. Some of it's sleep, some of it's GI, right? So some people have messy guts, if you would.
Right.
And they are unable to absorb those nutrients appropriately and assimilate them. And so what that does, unfortunately, is send a message to the brain that there are more nutrients needed. And so that can cause a very cyclical eating pattern, but they're not actually able to fully nutrify their cells.
So a vicious cycle, and that's interesting because I never looked at it that way. I always have known about gut health. I understand all that, but I never thought of it that way.
Yes.
So if people are thinking about, I just cannot lose weight, there could be a very simple reason for that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think most people know that. So
No.
that's like, newsflash.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And, I definitely can nerd out on this topic. But, we'll use diabetics as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If they're insulin resistant, they're not able to really, really utilize carbohydrates or sugar and turn it into energy, right? So they're having a difficult time utilizing the food that they're taking in and turning into ATP, which is our energy molecules, okay? Mm-hmm. If they're unable to do that, same thing. They're not able to utilize the sugar for energy. They're going to be tired and depleted. Meanwhile, their brain is telling them to eat to fill that gap. Mm-hmm. So that's where it becomes a big challenge. And the other job of insulin is not just to act like a key into the cell to allow sugar in so that it can be turned into energy. Mm-hmm. The other job is storing fat. So what is it doing with those cells that are insulin resistant? As it tells the patient or the person to eat more, it's just going to store those extra calories as fat as it's circulating in the bloodstream.
Makes total sense.
So we really have to, stop the cycle, right?
So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute, though. So what about the people that just plain and simple overeat and are looking for the quick fix?
Well, that's a great question. They're never going to get the quick fix. I don't really believe that there is a quick fix. I know that a lot of people are associating some diets, some fad diets, that word is often thrown around. Mm-hmm. GLP-1s have kind of fell into that as well. Mm-hmm. And people often think that's a quick fix. Everyone has to work at it, though. I can tell you from 14 years of weight loss, no one has it easy. This is not something that they won't have to work at, not only in the weight loss process, but also in the maintaining process.
Right.
We don't like to we don't encourage our patients to lose weight and then they're sent off into the universe without guidance. Our whole goal is prepping them for maintenance from day one. That's when it starts.
So you're more of a long-term weight loss, and you want, if they take the weight off, you want them to keep it off, and you want them to adapt a healthier lifestyle.
Right.
So, it's interesting because from my research, and you can confirm or deny, the research that I did was that they talk about a lot of the side effects. And I did a podcast with a doctor out of Florida he was probably ahead of the curve on semaglutide. And he was explaining off the podcast how it's imperative that people who do go on, semaglutide or some of the other options out there, that your diet is even more important when you're doing it because of the slowing down of emptying, your stomach and how it slows down and you feel full longer. That if you are sitting with a stomach full of junk food, that's where you tend to have the highest incident of the side effects. Is that true?
100%. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that we really go over in that first initial appointment with them is that they kind of like a bank account or currency, right? You may not have a lot. You're not going to have a humongous appetite. So choose wisely. Be really, really intentional about what you choose to put in your body at that time because you might not be hungry for a couple of hours, and for folks who are, used to consistently eating, they haven't really thought about it that way. So make sure you're getting good quality protein, making sure that you're eating the rainbow. And then, of course, fiber is so important during this process because what you mentioned, the slowing. I tell all my patients, you're slowing down from nose to tail. So you have to really, really think about that and make conscious decisions.
No, that was a visual.
Yeah, sorry about that. Too much.
I love that.
But it's something that people can, comprehend.
It's kind of funny. I saw something, dare I say, on Facebook today that really, I think, should resonate with a lot of people. That if you were told that you could only drive or have one car for your entire lifetime, how would you treat that car? And I always refer to my body as my vehicle. So it's always important, for me anyways, to stay active, to keep my mind active, to be very conscientious about what I put in my body. Not to say that I don't, fall off the rails once in a while and eat stuff that I'm not not typically something I would do,
Right.
but we all do it. And I think being in receipt of that sometimes prevents you from being somebody who, overeats a lot at night. I had a girl that worked for me and she said, I'll never forget this. She said, "You're so thin. And I don't know how you do that. Like, I'm younger than you. And how come I can't seem to take this 40 pounds off?" And I said, "Well, what's your average daily intake of what you eat?" And I'm being honest, my jaw absolutely dropped. I mean, she started off with eating breakfast at home, and then, and a good one at that. And then she would stop at Dunkin' Donuts and get a bagel and a cafe colada, which I know is just, a sugar bomb. Mm-hmm. And then she would get, something like fast food for lunch. And then she would go home and have a snack. And then she would have dinner. And then she said, "What really gets me is the bag of Doritos and the jar of salsa at night. I clean the whole bag out." And I thought, oh my God,
wow.
I could not imagine eating that in my lifetime, let alone one day. So it really comes down to, that post just resonated with me, that because I use that analogy a little bit, I say it a little bit differently, but you really do get one vehicle, and we know how to die in this country. Let's face it.
Oh yes.
We just don't make a lot of good choices sometimes. And I think a lot of it is, beyond our own fault. I think,
Sure.
just the way foods are processed and what we're marketed, how we're marketed and whatnot. But, it's interesting because with the onslaught of the Ozempic mm-hmm. and all of that, I do worry that people think it's a quick fix. Right. And if they can just get on that or get it on the black market, mm-hmm. they can start taking it. And, I think that I worry people are going down a rabbit hole without really understanding how to properly utilize it.
Yes.
Maybe they are a great candidate for it, but that's where your professionalism comes in, because you're going to be able to, get them on the right protocol. Mm-hmm. You're going to be able to educate them on how to properly utilize those medications. But more importantly, is the aftercare and what that looks like. Right. So if you could talk a little bit about, just how, when your average client comes in, what that looks like. What are they looking for? Are they looking for, massive amounts of weight loss? Are you getting a lot of the vanity weight, clients that just have 5 pounds and are like, "Give me the shot, I want to get this off"? Or
right.
What do you see in your practice?
Well, it does range quite a bit. And I would say some of the people that, some would refer to as vanity patients, they're symptomatic. They're mm-hmm. still symptomatic. So they might have, 10 to 15 pounds to lose, but yet they are not sleeping at night. They have low energy and they are working out like crazy and mm-hmm. unable to lose the weight. Mm-hmm. And they may even have sleep apnea.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah, so you don't have to be someone 150 pounds overweight to feel the effects of the overweight. So if your BMI is a little high, you can still have many symptoms, unfortunately, that are getting in the way of how you move through the world. So I'll give you an example. So 10 pounds, an extra 10 pounds of weight on you is 40 pounds of pressure on a joint.
Really?
Yes. So if someone has knee issues and they're, 12 pounds overweight, they still deserve relief from that. They still deserve guidance. They still, deserve a little help metabolically. Mm-hmm. And what I think these peptides do, it gives them the edge and kind of fine-tunes the system, almost like, I'm going to go back to your analogy, Marcia, almost like an oil change.
Okay. Yep.
So that the fuel that you're putting in to your vehicle mm-hmm. can work better.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we definitely have the folks who have 150 pounds to lose. Mm-hmm. But of course, if their insurance can cover it, we always
absolutely.
encourage them to do it that way. But I do think that using the GLP-1s without mm-hmm. coaching is negligence. Mm-hmm. I do think it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And, I that's one of the reasons why I feel good about what we do, is because we give a lot of guidance mm-hmm. and a lot of check-ins. And sometimes we have to kick people off. If they're having symptoms mm-hmm. or side effects of the GLP weight loss mm-hmm. that are not healthy for them, it's time to stop. We also have other peptides that we can switch them to, or other weight loss programs that we can switch them to at that time.
Oh, that's great news.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all protocol, which is where your expertise comes in and your medical background. We talked before we started recording that, there's so much out there. And we're going to do another whole podcast on, people going on the internet and buying it on I call it the black market. I'm sure there's a better name for that.
Sure.
But, people are really getting into dangerous territories when they're injecting things into their body without really understanding what they're doing and how to effectively utilize them. And it may not be the right one for them, but I have a love-hate relationship with social media because on one level, it's such a great vehicle to get your message out for your business, but it also, there's so much fraud, for the lack of a better word, out there. And the average consumer is not going to know how to decipher what is authentic and what is not good for you.
Of course. Which
is why I was really excited to do the podcast, was to get that information out so that people don't, get themselves into a medical bind inadvertently because they think they're doing, some good for themselves. So I have a really funny question.
Okay.
So once in a while, out of boredom, I'm not a big TV person, but out of boredom, sometimes if I'm cooking dinner or whatever, if it's on, I'll watch it. But that show, My 600-Pound Life.
Oh, yes.
So my question is, and I ask this of myself all the time, to myself, is why are they not doing that? Like, why is obesity so bad if there's these magic peptides out there? Do they not work for them? Is there a cutoff point where it just doesn't work? I'm fascinated by that because I don't understand. In my mind, I'm thinking if there is, as you point out, which I am embarrassed to admit, never thought of that. I know gut health is very important to your overall health. It makes total sense the way you explained it. But is there a cutoff where these just do not work? Because you would think everyone would be skinny and beautiful at this point.
Well, that is an awesome question. And unfortunately, you're right. It doesn't work for everyone. Or it may work for a short period of time and then stop working.
Okay.
And there are some contraindications as well. Sometimes, folks are not healthy enough to, take anything in addition, or they're very fearful. So if they are very heavy and are having cardiac issues and gallbladder issues and, they are very symptomatic, I think that they would be very fearful of taking something like this.
Okay.
I think they'd have some hesitation.
So does that dovetail back to why gastric bypass doesn't always work?
Yes.
But my impression of that was that's more psychological because they basically eat through and they're bad habits. So I know they have to go through a lot of psychological testing prior to make sure that their mindset is conducive to the bypass surgery so that they actually get the benefit of it. Because I do know a lot of people that have had bypass surgery that have gained all the weight back.
Yes, absolutely. I actually have to tell you, my first patient ever that had passed was a gastric bypass patient who did not regain the weight, but the psychology was tough for her and she actually became anorexic. And she was the first patient that I lost in the hospital. So that certainly made,
quite an impression
and impact on me and weight loss in general and what we can effectively do about it. But again, no one size fits all. And some people can lose weight on this medication and they might gain it all back if they're not addressing, the root causes. Issue. Absolutely. And then some, it just doesn't do the trick for them. It's just so sad to watch.
Yeah. Now that brings up a good point, because if you're not in good health, this is not the go-to. You've got to get your health in order before. Yes, I'm assuming you want to be in your optimal health in order for this to work.
It's a tricky one. I think yes and no. It is very beneficial for cardiac prevention, but I think if you had severe cardiac issues, that would be a risk to do. Okay. It can, for some, cause arrhythmias, but there are studies coming out now about its cardioprotection that it can offer.
Well, that would be fantastic.
I know.
Wow.
And, unfortunately in the social media, we don't really talk about that as much and how beneficial it is for addiction and how beneficial it is for sleep apnea. We're seeing a lot of the terrible side effects that can come out of it, which unfortunately is because there's a little bit of a lack of monitoring. If your doctor's prescribing it, they may check in, they may not, and it is a very clear tiered approach that they use rather than what I mean is their dosing schedule. So every month you go up in dosage when you are getting it from your insurance company. That doesn't leave room for the in-between dosing or microdosing or low dosing, which is really enough for so many people to be beneficial. So I think we go too high, generally speaking, in medicine with these weight loss medications that may not be necessary. And that's really when you see the side effects.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. So, and while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, what we really, I think, should probably drive home on this podcast is just how important it is to, go to a center like Be Vital in Hadley, Massachusetts, and make an appointment with you to really have, I'm sure, obviously, you do a consult with everybody, you find out specifically what's going on, whether or not they're a candidate for it. Maybe there's just some modifications they need to make in their lifestyle, their diet and whatnot that may get the weight off. Microdosing is something I want to do another whole podcast about because I'm fascinated by that as well. Sure. But I really do believe that if anyone were to take anything away from this podcast would be to just make the appointment and go in and find out, what might be, that magic bullet for you that might turn this whole thing around where you are going to feel better because you brought up sleep apnea. I never thought of that as that being a factor, which I see another podcast we have to do about that.
Yeah.
I am, shocked. I do insurance by trade, and sleep apnea is one of those knockout questions for life insurance. And a lot of people don't even for private health insurance, Massachusetts, where we're located, doesn't allow you to buy private health insurance. But other states like Florida, Texas, and a host of other states, you actually can. And that's always a knockout question for it. Sleep apnea has multiple layers of health issues. And a lot of people don't even know that they have it. So I'm interested to pick your brain about that down the road.
Absolutely.
But I never thought of that. But I do think it's imperative that people understand that before they even delve into that, they really should just make an appointment with you. So let's talk about how they get a hold of you and what that looks like.
Yes. So I think the best way to do that is to go online, look at our website, which is bevitalwellness.com. There is a contact us portion there, or you can give us a call or email. The contact portion allows you to to explain what you're looking for, what kind of service you're interested in. And then we will call you back and do an inquiry call first, kind of like a discovery call to find out what you're really looking for. And then if it is something like GLP, then you would have a consultation with our nurse practitioner.
Okay.
And if you're just curious about weight loss, we invite you to come in and do that inquiry so you can meet us. I think it's very, very important for the rapport to feel good, for the environment to feel good. It has to kind of strip away some of the stigma around it. That's our goal. And for you to feel comfortable here in our establishment in Hadley. So we do invite people to do that if they're just curious. Don't wait. Just give us a call. Let's get you in here and see how it feels and see what you might be interested in.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I go, in my mind, I go back to where all of a sudden when Botox started getting popular and podiatrists were doing it.
Yes, right.
Like everyone jumped on the bandwagon. And I will tell you, I feel your passion about it from a health perspective and a wellness perspective, as opposed to a financial perspective, which I think that kind of separates you out from a lot of the people that I've seen online that are marketing it. And just if you can fog a mirror, they can get you the GLP-1 and you're going to lose weight and you're going to feel fantastic and you're going to feel, wonderful. But I can really hear your passion for the health and the wellness side of it, which I think is really lacking in the industry right now due to social media. Not that I'm sure there's very good people out there that mean well.
Sure.
But I want them to be well, which
That's
is
right.
why I want them to call you. So what is your phone number here?
It is 413-387-0219.
And we will have all that contact information in the subject line with all the podcasts. So if you don't listen to the whole thing or you start listening and you're like, no, I want to call them right now, we will have all that contact information in there. Anything else you want to add as we kick 2026 off with the Be Well, Be Vital podcast?
I just want to say that this is a really exciting time of year. And I know a lot of people talk about resolutions, and I just want to point out that it's a great time for intentions. Intentions, I feel, is a very different word. It's much more positive. This isn't about changing who you were. It's not about anything, putting bad stuff behind. It's about setting your future up for positive energy and vitality and feeling good. And everyone deserves that.
Yeah, whatever happened in 2025, you're
Yep.
not there anymore.
Nope.
You have a new yellow brick road to go down, and we invite you to do that just to feel better. So that's wonderful. Again, I am with Stephanie Nascimento, and we are located at Route 9 in Hadley, Massachusetts at the Be Vital Wellness Center. Number again?
413-387-0219.
Perfect. All right, Stephanie, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
check back, and we're going to be doing more podcasts. We got a lot of great topics. Sleep apnea is definitely one I want to talk about. But until then, make it a great week.